is asking if someone leaves the workshop to go out to supported employment, can they come back? And the answer is no. Once they leave, we cannot re-enroll them. Retool the Pathways to Employment program, which I mentioned, is supposed to get implemented by October 1st. And I don't have any details about it yet, about what the program even looks like, so can't really do too much there. Chris mentioned this earlier, they need to develop a plan for closing shelter workshops. They have to have a draft plan submitted by October 1st. And from what I understand, they have not even met yet. So I also understand there's going to be workshop forums around the state about closure. And that's why I think it's important for you to know what's going on so you can attend. And I would be happy to give you all the dates for that so that you can get more information about what options are available for your loved ones. The final plan has to be done January 1st, 2014, the plan. Now, we don't know if that means 2 years, 3 years, 5 years for closure. We don't know. Now, one of the points I'm going to tell you at the end is please ask for more time. You know, we found out about this and we were told that we can't admit as of July 1. It didn't leave a lot of chance to evolve and develop new programs for kids coming out of school. We don't want people left in that predicament who've worked in shelter workshops for 30 years. We want to have options and we want to have time to transition people into the right service. And we want to keep options such as paychecks on the table for people. So those are some points that I'm going to probably repeat to you, but that's really important. Increase the number of people supported employment and competitive employment by 700 people by April 1st, 2014. So something that you need to know about national statistics on supported employment is there's been no growth in supported employment since 2000. It's stagnant, it's a national issue. There's about 19% of people nationally who are developmentally disabled who work competitively. So 700 may not sound like a lot of people, but when you're talking about one person at a time, one employer at a time, less than a year, that's a lot of people. 700, you know, when we only currently have 8,000 employees, quite a bit. This is the regional target of 500 people regionally, which is the Finger Lakes region, by April 1st, 2018. Okay, the next area is self-direction. And this is an important concept for people to understand. And it took me a while to get this, to understand what the thought process is. And I've only been through one of these so far with a person that receives services. Okay? It's called Consolidated Supports and Services, CSS. It's been around for a few years. There's about 850 people in the state who get their services through this. It's very, very individualized. Remember when I said that some people are overserved, and that's a real issue for New York? Well, this kind of gets at what do they need and when they need it. But it also comes with an individualized budget. So, you know, Chris would have his own set of needs and his own budget, and Martin would have his own set of needs and his budget, and they'd be very different. And I'm going to get a little bit into how they determine, you know, what the needs are, how they score it, and how they come up with those budgets. But that's what that means, to have your own budget. And you would take it with you. So you could, you know, you might get one service from one provider, another service from another provider, and if you don't like that service, you can take it, move it, and take it with you. So that's a little different concept. And you purchase what you want, and you hire your own staff. It's a pretty complicated program. I'm not going to get into all the acronyms, but you would contract with an agency like ours, and we would do the actual physical hiring, which you would choose who the staff person was in consultation with us. They would still go through background checks and all the things that we need to do, which you would choose that person. And then there needed to be backup plans for when that person left and when that person called in sick. And lots of things with that. But that's the direction that they're heading. Does that make sense to everyone? The milestone for which is really huge. I mean, they're really pushing this program. They call it the prelude to managed care. This is kind of the concept of managed care, and they're getting us used to it, and then we'll move into a managed care environment. Housing, somebody asked about this, housing. There's just under 1,000 people in the state locked in institutions. New York State is committed to closing institutions, and the Rural Development House Center is closing by January 1, 2014. I understand there's less than 50 people there. And they're going to increase the availability of supportive housing options, including non-traditional housing options, such as shared living, or home of your own, like someone buying their own home, or sharing with a person in the community, different options for giving care they're looking at. Another thing that I can announce is that we are in the process of opening supportive apartment program, which is very much needed in our region, so that will be a helpful thing for many people who need another housing choice other than Iowa. And maybe the least, we do is community rehabilitation, where a staff person comes in, and maybe that's not enough. So supportive apartment is really an exciting option we're going to have. We are in the process of doing a rate setting for that. I don't know, Martin, do you know? Why are you thinking about opening supportive apartments? We have agreement to go ahead, you said. This is AWOL.
Will the group homes remain?
We believe the group homes will remain as is. We've heard nothing different than that. But I'm going to show you in a minute about how assessment is done and how needs are determined and how that can impact whether a group home is an option for your child or not. Okay. The last target for the transformational agenda is rate reform, which is much needed in order of how we determine our rates for services. And just to quickly go through them, fairness and equity. I mentioned that it's not always fair how rates are determined, and New York knows that, so they're trying to make it more equitable across the state. They're also making it affordable, like we talked about. You can take your budget with you. Efficiency and economy. New York has to save money on how they deliver services and make it more efficient. Simplicity and practicality is really complicated right now, so that's not a bad thing. Network stability and structural reform are some of the reasons that they're doing rate reform. Okay, a little bit about Hilltop. We have 212 people in our work center. We paid in 2012 $850,000 for people with disabilities. That was their wages that they earned. Something to point out about that stayed right here in Eastern Wyoming County, that money was spent locally. Our sales were $1.8 million in our work center. We had $2.4 million overall, but $1.8 million for these centers. And another thing to point out about our work center is if we didn't do this work, I am a very firm believer that it would go to China or it would go to Mexico. And wouldn't necessarily stay here if we didn't do it. I can tell you that one of our suppliers, I met with them a couple days ago, they were very concerned about whether we're going to continue because it's so important for their operation that we're close by during this important service. They were nervous. And I was nervous that they were nervous. So I had to reassure them that we're still a viable option for them going forward. And we are committed, by the way, to keeping our work center open. We are committed to making it an affirmative business, which means we're running it like a business, like our brand department on the other side of this wall is considered an affirmative business. We run it like a business. And we're committed to doing that. But that's going to affect who can be in our program. Okay, so I'm going to cover that here. Support employment last year was 83 people. We would love to grow that, but I will tell you, Roxy Adams is here somewhere tonight. She can tell you what a challenge it is to get those jobs. It's an important concept. Our production staff bad staff. They work side by side with people getting services, so we count that. The other thing is we had 100% satisfaction on our last survey from the people that we serve. And there are people who don't like coming here, but they're few and far between. I think many people enjoy, that I see, enjoy coming here every day. And attendance is actually incredibly good for many of our workers, Lisa.
With these cuts, is the case managers gonna end up losing their job here?
We're not planning to do any layoffs. We're not planning to, change the number of people that we work here. But what we do have to do is shift people into different services. And I'm going to cover that in a minute about what they might look like. Okay. This slide actually comes from OPWD, and there's a couple things that I want to cover on it. The first is the bottom right, access. This is access to services, how a person gets into our service system, which many of you have already been through this. You've been through eligibility, you know what that process is, you have to submit paperwork, and then New York State says you have to qualify for services. It's going to be now called the front door, and it's going to be handled more by OPWD and less by agencies like ours. They're going to do more on their end. And a key part of that is assessment, which is upper left. Everyone's going to be assessed for what their needs are. Right now, we do what's called the DDP2. Has anyone heard of the DDP2? No? Your staff often do those, people who work with you. Case managers, house staff, they complete DDP2s. And there are a bunch of questions that kind of decide, what areas are you really good at, what areas do you need help with, those kinds of things. Well, New York State is using those DDP2s right now. They're turning them into a big math problem for how to convert your needs into numbers and scoring it. So it becomes a score. One person might be a 1, which is the least amount of needs. Another person might be a 6, which is the most need. Okay? And they're called ISPM scores. And the ISPM score is what's going to determine what your budget is. How much money you're going to have to work with to buy services. So, for example, if Martin over here is a 1, his budget might be $100. But Chris is a 5, and his budget might be $500. So Chris can buy a whole lot more service than Martin can. Okay? Obviously, those aren't the real numbers. But does that make sense to everybody? Your needs get converted down. Okay? Right now, we're using the DDP2 where they're going to switch to what's called the comprehensive complete assessment system, the CAS. It's going to be the new system in the next year and a half. And it's probably a better tool, to be honest, than the DDP2. It's probably a fairer tool. But it's going to be not administered by agency staff. It's going to be administered by OPWD staff. And that's going to determine how much money is available to purchase services.
I applied for another item that's no class. And I went in 3 times and they told me that they had it through the shopper, it was all done. I can't figure out because some of them are still in there.
Okay, so you applied for a job?
Yeah, I applied for a bus monitor.
Okay.
And I asked the girl if she would take too much. So
Well, I can talk to you about that afterwards. He's asking me if you applied for a job. He's wondering about what happened to that. You applied for an agency job.
Yeah, I never
heard.
I never heard anything from her.
I can help you with that, okay?
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Ken? Your budget? Good question. Your budget will be the same for a year. And then it'll be reassessed. From what I understand, that could change though. Remember what Chris said at the beginning, everything's very fluid. So keep that in mind. From what I understand, it'll be reassessed every year. Okay? So your budget could change. Or if something big happens during the year, you break your leg or, something dramatic happens, your budget will be reassessed then as well, from what I understand. Okay? Now, like I said, I've only been through this once so far, because I had one student coming out of school who didn't have the right score, because if you're below a 3, an ISBM score of 3, you can't come into a day head program. So I had a person less than a 3, and I needed to work with them to come up with an individual contract and budget. Okay? Does that make sense to everybody? Because we're going to use the number to decide whether you're qualified for the program. So we're being told that number below a 3 for residential as well. So if your ISBM score is below a 3, you may not qualify for a residential program. Okay, but again, that could change. And we're able to do a reassessment to the DP2. If we think the number's too low, we're able to look at it again and see if we do it completely. Are we really getting all the information? And hopefully, make it a more accurate document. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. I got this sign from OPWP too, and this just shows, what the system looks like. You get eligibility determined, you get your assessment that I just mentioned, and what your ISBM score is going to look like. Then you develop what supports you need based on your ISBM score. Okay? Because you might want to work, and you need to know what you need, and then come up with a budget. And then you get informed decision-making individual plan, because we will help you develop a plan. And then your service is authorized and implemented. That's kind of the flow of things. But I will tell you right now, things are very much in flux. Not all the pieces are in place yet, but this is where they're heading very quickly. Okay? So what does that mean here at Hilltop? Okay, and this is kind of conceptual, I'll be honest. This is just what we think we're going to do. All right, it can change. So, the first thing on the left is our existing daycare programs. We're going to call that our Life Skills Training Centers. And we have the Uptown Life Skills Training Center, which is at 21 Chapel Street. And we have Open Road Senior Center, which is at 66 Neal Street. We think very much it will stay the same in terms of the service we deliver. Some of the people might change. Over time, we will probably lose people who have maybe not as many needs. Their ISBM score is a little lower. They may not be in this program long term. Okay? That's why you got the arrow pointing to the other services. Okay? So then we have the Hilltop Career Training Center, vocational rehabilitation. We have Pathways to Employment, which we don't know what that's going to look like right now. We know it's going to be a 12-month program to intensively work with someone. All right? We have supported employment. We know what that is. We currently do that, community employment, but it's made up to be realistic with people. Supported employment oftentimes happens weekends, evenings, 2 days a week, 3 days a week. It's not full-time that Monday through Friday oftentimes. Those of you who work in supported employment can probably attest to that. But it's kind of a hit and miss scheduling. The last area is we're calling community connections. We need to come up with another option for our LIVES program, which is the college experience program at SUNY Geneseo. Right now it is funded through a day-hab model, which people in day-hab need to have really high ISBM scores. They need to be really needy. And typically the people who go through college experience are not needy. They're going to get that college experience, be independent on the college campus. So we need to come up with another funding mechanism, and we're going to call it, through our Community Connections program, come up with something different to fund that program, okay? We also need to come up with something different for our seniors aging out of working, because some of them have low needs. They're healthy, they're happy, they just want to retire. The last one, which is the big unknown, which is where you guys really need to figure out what you want, is job readiness. I've come up with a curriculum for this. Because right now, many people, 130 people in fact, are funded at Hilltop for pre-vocational services. I see many faces who's in pre-voc are here tonight, or their family members. There's 130 people. They're below 50% productive. They tend to have more needs, and they give their services through the workshop. As do 95% of all New Yorkers in pre-voc get services through the workshop. So we're not unique. But now we can't admit anybody to pre-voc because they're all served through the workshop. So we need to come up with another option. I've come up with a curriculum where right now there's 8 modules. For example, I'll give you one example. Agriculture. We're very agricultural oriented community. I've come up with planting a garden, which would be planting, weeding, harvesting, selling, and all the skills that go along with that. Classroom time with Cornell Cooperative Extension, touring farms, all those things. Classroom time, experiential time, maybe time out, in the garden. It sounds really great, and I would actually love to work in the program, but they will likely not be paid. That will be the difference. So those people who are used to getting a paycheck, the program wouldn't support being paid. This is a really gray area though, I'll be honest. We don't have a lot of direction yet from OPWD, and I think they need to hear from you. They need to hear that what you want. You want an option that includes a paycheck for your child who's in pre-voc. Because I think we can find a way to work around this transformational agenda. They're supporting some minimum wage. They're supporting people working, but how can we fund the needs of those people and still keep them working? Right? Candace?
What about for those people who drive to work and drive home and such, or those that own a car and obviously take the bus for transportation and all that stuff? Like, what are they going to do about the people, like those people?
Well, there's people who don't qualify for pre-voc, which might be what we're trying to get at, who work here now, who might be over 50% productive, maybe under 50% productive. What I'm hoping, and that's what brings us to the last part of this slide, is Hilltop Business Services. Right now, we have a bunch of business services here. We have Finders Keepers Thrift Store. We have the Hilltop Online Plant Redemption Center next door. We have Hilltop Cleaning Service. We have about 40 people who work in that service and clean many thousands of square feet of office a day. And we have Hilltop Pet Shop. Those are existing businesses that we run, and we employ people with disabilities through them to support employment. We also have Hilltop Assembly and Packaging, where we have a lot of business. We do a lot of sales, and we need to continue with that because it's important work. So we're going to integrate our workshop. This is the plan. We're going to hire non-disabled workers to come in and work side by side with people with disabilities. And we're going to hopefully still meet the needs of this transformational agenda and meet the needs of people with disabilities. So I'm going to be honest, there's not going to be room for everybody. And if they say that they're running like a business, it's going to be hard to support the needs of people who are only 5%, 10%, 15% productive. So that's where you guys need to come in and advocate and say, I still want my child to work. What can you come up with to support them? Okay? And still get a paycheck. Alright, does that make sense to everybody? They don't have this figured out. It's not a done deal.
is there any talk on hiring more job developers? Will there be funding for that?
I haven't heard specifically that they'll be funding. The question is about job developers, and will we be funded for more job developers? I haven't specifically heard that, but I have heard they're gonna give us perhaps better rates for our support employment program than we do right now. Because our rates are very low for that program. Because people tend to not have a lot of needs in that program. We're talking about putting more people in that program who have greater needs. So we certainly have identified it internally as a need as we move into this different business model of where we need to shift people. I mean, I've had conversations with some of the staff here. They know that things are changing. People will need to kind of morph into different things as things evolve, and that would be one of the areas that we need to morph into is more job development. So yes.
What would our incentive be to say yes, put it out there, so when we put it across the space, now we have nothing for it.
Right. What you're asking about is what do we do about safety net? Right. And that is a really another good point. I would like to put that out there, safety net. That's a good point. I hadn't got that one, but you're absolutely right. You need to advocate for safety net for your child. If they're not successful, do they have something to fall back on? Going it up. If you stop working, where would we put you? Is that what you're asking? Well, what I said was remember the community connections choices, so and the intensive job readiness program. But the problem with that program is it wouldn't necessarily include a regular paycheck. And that's where I think people need to advocate for what it is they want. If the paycheck's important to you, then you need to let them know that. If that's not what you're looking for, if you're really looking to intensively work on skills or move into a different employment situation, that's okay too. But it's what's right for you and your family, okay?
Right now, when they come to the workshop, ARC has transportation provided. If you change this into more of a business, within a way, ARC is then going to be the employer, almost like support employer business, right? How does that affect all the people coming to the school? I mean, will they still get transportation?
Well, in order to stay in business, you have to transport. I'll be honest about that. There's no other way for us to stay in business without health losses. If we're going to run our one program.
How would they get here?
How would they get here? And we're not funded very much now. So it would be a little bit of a loss, but that would be another area that we need to, again, how it's a support service that people need in order to get to their job. How are they going to ensure that? Mrs. Esther.
Why can't ARC become a supportive employment? Why can't you turn the workshop into a supportive employment?
The question is, why can't we turn the workshop into supportive employment? That's kind of what we're talking about doing, but the problem with supportive employment is we're funded very, very little for each person that we have in supportive employment. So, for example, we might have a person right now who comes into the workshop every day. They might have a choking risk. They might need help with, cutting up their food every day. They might have supervision issues that we have to supervise them very closely. They might have care needs, like getting medications. They get transported in on the bus. None of that is funded under supported employment.
And how is it going to be supported out of here?
Another good question. Right now, we have enhanced supported employment, which does allow us to go. We have 40. How many slots? We have 10 slots. We have 10 slots for this enhanced supported employment, where we're able to send a person with a job coach with the person most of the time, which is helpful. But I only have 10 slots.
But that's also extra money. It seems to me that it's going to cost New York more money to do this than it would be to keep the workshop. And that to me makes no sense.
I would tend to agree with you in that like if you move into a community connections program where you have a lot of overserved, like if you look at the direction that they're heading, it may not be, the savings might not be in the day programs, might be in other areas down the road.
And how can you say they're overserved when there's no place to send them, there's no
No,
job?
I know that, but I'm saying the current system, like, for example, someone who might live in a residence might be overserved. You know, they get more service that is available than what they need. Or they're in a daytime program where maybe they don't need that level of care. If that
I
makes sense.
assume you have them there because there's,
It's a choice.
yeah,
That's why they're there.
oh, it's a choice, oh, okay,
They chose to go to that program.
oh, okay. I thought it's never in a situation where they don't really have another option for it.
Sometimes that's true. Sometimes that is true, absolutely. And there's absolutely people who need it, you have no question, no question about it. But there are a lot of people who choose to go there. Some of our seniors, they choose to retire, and that's the option we have available that's coming through there. And they're probably overserved because of the funding mechanism. Okay, does that make sense? It's a good point though, about, again, a lot of questions we don't know the answers to.
I think there definitely needs to be more community education in terms of the changes too, because we're really going to put a lot more into the communities, and if there isn't a community support yet for it, and we're just learning, and the community doesn't really understand those changes.
Yeah,
and
what
how
she's
to-
saying is that we need to educate people more in the community, and I absolutely agree with you.
I mean, we don't have the resources in the community, so especially to get people out and then not I mean, you go to work, you want to get a paycheck, so I would, hope that,
My personal philosophy here at our agency is because we're rural, we need to make our own opportunities. We have to go out and find our own businesses to come here, we have to create our own jobs, and we've done that consistently. I mean, you see all the businesses we have. We do that not to make money, we do that to create jobs, is to create the opportunities, and that's the reality. And so, if we walk in, we're very committed to keeping our work programs. I mean, so we're abundantly clear about that. But making sure you know what you need to advocate for. Okay?
Part of budget, or would that be based on scores as well?
Good question. Can transportation be part of the individualized budget? Yes, it can. In fact, the one case that I did do, we talked about it, but she couldn't afford it. But there's some complicated circumstances, but you need to take transportation into consideration when you make the budget. Absolutely.
Okay, when the score is set out in the eligibility and assessment, this is what I want, is that there will be safeguards for parent advocacy, or guardian advocacy, and that they can say, no, you said a wrong job, you assessed my child, or